Hello, and welcome to Rapid Experimentation. Today, I'm going to walk you through in this guided facilitation video. I'm going to walk you through the process of beginning to set up your experimentation plan. So there are quite a few steps in this. It's actually not an easy process, I would say, but it is a really important process, and I actually find it really fun. This is a time where we're switching from having a lot of ideas and a lot of things we think that we should be doing and talking about it and imagining into actually planning what those tests could look and feel like. So this is when we change things into rapid prototypes. So for today, that's what we'll be doing, is shifting from ideas in our heads, maybe even another iteration of things that we have tested, and developing another experimentation plan. But this is all about beginning to, I would say, sort of push on what you think is true, what you think you might need to test, and make those concrete plans to actually get the best learnings that you can so that you can develop the best products, services, solutions, engagements for the people who matter to you. All right, so let's get started. So to begin, pull up your template. If you haven't already, take a look at that. I'm going to give you a few steps to do together, and we'll take about 15 minutes to do this. So pull up a template. We have a template here in Club Pando that you can pull up. And you can either look at it, if you're virtual, you can look at it online together in some sort of shared format. Maybe it's through a SharePoint, or maybe it's through a Google Sheet. But pull that up. If you're in person, have some printouts in front of you, and you can either work on printouts, or you can actually draw things on large whiteboards if you're looking to have kind of a larger scale format. So what I want you to do is take a look at those things together. And I want you to then begin to think about what are the concepts and what are the ideas that you all are thinking about actually planning out and trying. So get clear on what are those concepts that you want to do that with. And then what we'll be doing is we're going to brainstorm some questions that you have about them. So remember, this is all about rapid experimentation and learning. So look at those different concepts and think critically and brainstorm, first beginning silently with to yourself, and then you can share with others. But what is it that you really need to learn? What are assumptions that you might have about this particular concept or subset of a concept? And I think something important to think about is, after you brainstorm lots of these things out, what are your assumptions? What are things you need to learn? Really kind of look at it, and you'll be thinking critically about what are really the most important ones. If we get this wrong, this would be really pretty bad. So what I want you to do is be brainstorming those kinds of concepts. Take your concepts, brainstorm those different questions, the learnings, the assumptions that you have behind them, and then kind of highlight the ones that you think are the most important. We're going to take 15 minutes. So what I would recommend is maybe take a few minutes silently to do that on your own, and then begin to share it as a group, and make some decisions about what are the ones that are the most important to you, and then we'll be moving on to the next step from there. So go ahead and pause this video and take about 15 minutes to do that. Okay, welcome back. What we're going to do now is we're going to think about those questions that you have put together, that you have about those particular concepts or portions of the concept. And now we're going to think about, what are your measures of success? What are the signals that you would see that would tell you, oh, we're going in the right direction? If we don't have a sense of measures, then we don't really know if we're going in the right direction or not. So let me give you an example of a couple of kinds of measures that we often use. So there are outcome measures, there are process measures, and there are balancing measures. Now, this will just help you maybe think creatively about measures. So outcome measures, those are the ones that we usually think about first. Those are those longer term, kind of the goal at the end. Let's say if you're working on faster throughput process at a clinic that you're working on. Well, so that outcome measure might be the speed that someone gets through that line. So it's really that kind of main thing that you're looking for, or reduction in errors of some sort, or someone to purchase something, maybe perhaps with your product or service. Lots of different things could be outcome measures, but those are really the main kind of goals that you have in mind. So those are outcome measures. So brainstorm some of those. Process measures, this is what I really love. Process measures are those steps that start to tell you you're going in the right direction. And those are the things that you can perhaps measure more quickly, because sometimes those outcome measures might take a long time. So what are those signals that tell you you're going in the right direction. I'll give you an example. When we were working on reducing medication errors with nurses, we were working on a different kind of process flow and things that they were doing while they were giving medications. So reducing medication errors was the main outcome measure that we had. For process measures, we knew that the more interruptions that a nurse had while he or she or they were giving those medications, it meant that there was a higher likelihood that they would actually have an error. So a process measure for us was the number of interruptions during a medication pass. So that gives you a sense. So that was a signal that would tell us early on, oh, if we can reduce those interruptions, we're going in the right direction. So what are those process measures for you? Maybe it's the steps to something. Maybe it's clicks into something. Maybe it's phone calls that you get on something. Maybe it's kind of tracking a few people and how long it takes them to do something. But what are those process measures that helps get you there? And then outcome. So you've got outcome, process, and then balancing measures. Those might be those unintended consequences. So that might be maybe this increases the cost of something. Maybe it actually increases the time it takes to do something. Maybe it takes more people. Maybe this causes dissatisfaction to another group of people. So think about what those balancing measures might be. So outcome, process, and balancing measures. So what I want you to do now is think of all those different kinds of questions, those assumptions that you had, the ones that you highlighted as the most important. And now I want you to think about what are some measures or some easy signals of success that would help to tell you you're moving in the right direction. So we're going to go ahead and I'll have you pause this. Let's spend about 15 minutes in doing that, and then we'll come back to this video. So go ahead and pause now. Okay, welcome back. So I hope you have some measures that you find interesting and intriguing. So now what we're going to do is plan some tests. And to do that, I actually want to show you a couple of slides. So bear with me for just a second. All right. So here are some examples of ways that you can prototype, because this is what you'll be doing next, is you'll be thinking creatively about how do I actually potentially prototype some of those things so I can test my assumptions, get some of my questions answered, maybe see a change in some of my measures. So these are different ways that you can test prototypes. So I want to give a little bit of anchoring in. Why do we prototype in the first place? So we really prototype to create the future. It allows us, it's a great way to allow us to jump into what the future could be through these rapid experiments. And most importantly, it helps us to learn. There are lots of ways of prototyping something, of experimenting, if you will. So you can develop tools. You can create any kind of tool. Maybe it's a digital tool. Maybe it's a, kind of an interaction, something people might be touching and feeling. You can make that in sort of paper prototypes and build it out quickly. You can also prototype technology. You see here some prototypes of technology sketched on pieces of paper. You can either take, a phone or a screen and put, say, Post-it notes across it to represent different screens. Or I've even cut out some poster board and, put someone's head in it about what the training might look and feel like. So you can act out technology, you can draw it out, you can do lots of things to get a sense of what a technology might feel like. Workflows, you've probably done this in simulations, perhaps if you're a clinician and you might simulate something in an operating room, you might act it out. You do this all the time as children. We kind of act out and do these workflows or these kind of enactments. So you can do that about what this process, what this experience might look like. Can you act it out with somebody else, get a sense of what that feels like? Roles, you can actually, if you have a new role that's a part of your concept, you can potentially get a volunteer or backfill someone to play in that role for a certain period of time. Maybe that's 5 minutes, maybe it's a day, depends on what it is that you need to learn. But there are different ways of understanding how that role might look and feel. Spaces, you see here someone has drawn out things with blue tape on cement. You can move furniture around in a space. Sometimes I've hung, sheets from the ceiling if I need a room to be able to be smaller. You can use foam core boards to divide things out. Lots of things you can do to test out different space ideas. And business models. This is an image of the business model canvas. So a business model can also be tested out through some of these things we're talking about here and through a business model canvas. So an image of a simulation or enactment, as an example, this is a group that was working on thinking about a new way of university representatives recruiting in students. So they were acting out what that interaction might look like that was different than the way that they currently did it. We've also had people act out what a podcast might sound like. So while they were showing it to people, they were kind of listening and imagining what that might what that experience might be like, listening to that podcast and interacting with that podcast. So lots of ways of interacting or simulating. Again, paper prototype. This is potentially an app that someone was thinking about. So you can prototype those very quickly and easily. We always recommend prototypes because it's easier to fail early, often, and cheaply than it is to spend many months and lots of money on something that doesn't actually meet someone's needs. So these are really important tools to use. This is sort of an example of we worked with people redoing a cafeteria experience. Let me show you a little bit of a video that kind of demonstrates what we were doing here. So we were working and changing around all sorts of things in a cafeteria experience, really focused on the employee health and wellness. So let me show this to you, and I'll just highlight a couple of things to you. So the people in the navy shirts that you see here were gathering feedback after people had gone through that cafeteria experience, again, gathering some of the metrics that we were working on here. How long was it that it took them to get through the line? Satisfaction on some different changes we had made. Did it actually change what they ended up purchasing? Did they purchase more healthy options, maybe than they had done the day before or the week before? So gathering some of our metrics, you can see that happen here. Kind of skip. So then I hope it doesn't make you seasick here. Right. So then we coming here into the main part. This is a cafeteria entry. I'll show you some prototypes here. We had prototyped out just a poster board with pictures of healthy meals so that we were highlighting the healthy meals before people came in to make their meal choice. We had learned through our observations and through our interviews that a great majority of people chose, pizza and fried chicken and these very kind of fast, easy, not the healthiest options. So we were trying to shift that. And could we prototype things to shift the food choices that they were making? So this was one of the concepts that we were testing out. We did it with just poster board. We also we highlighted a particular healthy meal here that you can see kind of sitting on the table. And we also had one healthy meal each day that would be price adjusted. And so we were trying out if something we were featured as, as a kind of the discount for the day, would that also influence people? What are the things that would influence them? So you see a gentleman coming here, and there's a woman that's right here, and she's actually taking information and she's counting the number of people in lines. One of the things that we learned through our observations is that the healthier food choices, like there was a stir fry area, there was a salad making area, that those seemed, in people's perceptions, seemed to have much longer lines and they would take longer, so they would avoid them. So we actually physically changed the line structure, and she is actually here counting the number of people in the lines. So she's part of our prototyping team. So I'll ask her a question in a little bit. You can see her kind of counting. You can see blue tape on the floor where we're changing those lines. We put up these partitions to change the flows. So we did all this for just a day.
What are you doing right now?
Taking down the times of how many people are in the lines.
All right, so you can see that she's done that. And let me jump a little bit. I'm now going down the hallway to another one of our team members who is down here checking and testing out the concept of a digital dashboard that would show the price of some of the food choices.
What are you hearing?
So a lot of good stuff about the line setup and how everybody's able to get on the line very easily without being all piled up together, and the fact that they can see who's on what line before they get there.
So how are you getting the information for this?
Text message, so I get text every couple seconds.
Yeah, can I see?
And then I update the board. So I just got my list of, and I'm about to update.
So he is our digital whiteboard, our digital board that would start to tell people the line sizes. You can see here, the cost, the meal of the day, and kind of highlighting some of those healthier food choices. So I wanted to kind of call that out because, let me stop my screen sharing. because there's lots of ways of testing ideas. So this particular group came up with many different kinds of ideas. There's also a water station. There's lots of different things that they were testing. They were trying out if we changed around the cabinet when people come in. The cabinet did have, puddings and different kinds of desserts and frappuccinos and bottles. And they wanted to try, well, what if we switch those out with apples and hummus and highlight things that are good if you have heart issues or maybe you want to have lower sugar content, etc. So, and what we did is we planned out the prototypes. We used a rapid experimentation tool, planned out what it was that we wanted to test, what are the assumptions that we had, and then we tested them out. So that's what we're looking to do today. And there are lots of different ways of doing that, and know that as you experiment and as you actually run these kinds of tests, your prototypes, your ideas will continue to refine and evolve until you either adapt them and say, these are ready to go, and kind of change them around a little bit. We need to keep kind of adjusting them a little bit, adopting them, that we're implementing those now, or maybe abandoning them. This wasn't the idea. It's not working the way that we actually thought that it would. All three of those options are perfectly fine. What we don't want to do is force fit an idea into our community, our health system, our organization. That was never actually really tested very well, and we're stuck with it for a very long period of time. And we all know what that feels like. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pause this video. This is kind of the biggest chunk of time. We're going to take 35 minutes, and you can take more or less depending on what works best for you. We would recommend working in kind of some small teams to plan out these rapid experiments. If you happen to be a larger group, if you're a smaller group, then you're ready to go. But start planning out some of the ways that you imagine that you can prototype these ideas. We showed you a lot of different options. If you want to jump this video back and watch those again, if that's helpful, go ahead. But actually, when you come out of this, think of ideas with really a minimalist mindset. If you needed to go out into the field and try your ideas, say this afternoon or tomorrow or next week at the latest, how would you do that? How would you be able to try these ideas quickly? So go ahead and pause this video for around 30, 35 minutes, whatever works the best for you, and then come back and we'll move on to the next steps to wrap up. Okay, welcome back. I'm sure your brain is a little bit tired. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at the tests that you have, and we're just going to go back and retest them or recheck them against your assumptions, because we want to make sure that we didn't go off and build up a lot of tests that actually don't address the questions that you had about your concepts in the first place. So this is our kind of double check, if you will, before we actually go out there. So what I want you to do is, share some of those things that you have, some of those prototypes that you came up with, and I want you to share them with each other and check, are they actually testing your assumptions? So what we're going to do first is I'm going to give you about, let's say 5 to 10 minutes. You guys can determine how much time. And I want you to test your assumptions first. So get ready to be able to share these prototype plans that you came up with. We'll pause the video to do that, and then we'll move on to sharing with each other. So for now, pause the video, check them against your assumptions, adjust where you think you actually might need to make some changes, and then we'll come back together. So go ahead and pause the video, and I'll see you in either 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back. Now what you'll be doing, as I mentioned, is you're going to be sharing your kind of your plans with each other. Let's see. In this process, let's take about, let's say 20 minutes, and we'll have each group, or if you're one group, that's fine, share with each other. So if you're virtual, come back into kind of a main session. You may have been in breakout rooms. If you're in person, you may have been in different corners of the room, but come back together now and then take turns sharing with each other. And now as the listener, as you're listening to people sharing them, be a helpful critic. Maybe I wish, I wonder about what it is that their plans are, to give them constructive feedback. Constructive feedback means it's something they can actually act on, and it can be better after it is that you've shared it. This isn't the time to tear people down. This is the time to help each other to make even better experiments going forward. So we're going to take 20 minutes to do that. And so as you do sort of a round robin, if that's what works for your group, share some constructive feedback and plan what those next steps will be. So that will be the final step in these 20 minutes. So this is the last section of this active prototyping. After this pause, I'll have a few suggestions on what you can do next after you test your ideas in the field. So go ahead and pause the video now and give each other feedback and make some plans for testing your prototypes and running some experiments. Okay, so final few notes. If you made it this far, I feel like this is like the credits after the credits. So a couple of things, running your tests, build the prototypes and mock-ups, take some time to actually build those things out, get them ready. In the video that I showed you, we spent some time putting blue tape, getting those partitions to change the videos, making the poster boards, planning out who was going to be trying what, where were we going to be standing. So make those plans to actually get out. When are you going to do it? Who's going to do what? Make those plans to run those tests. And then I would recommend that, obviously, after you've run those tests, plan for a time to get together and debrief. What did you learn? What evolves now based on what your learnings are? What might you want to do next? Do you want to run another session like this to plan your experiments? Are there some of the experiments that are ready to move into the next stage? But those are some kind of next steps. So make sure that you plan out and actually create the things you need to create to go out and run your experiments, build your prototypes, and then plan for time to come back and debrief what your learnings are and consider doing another cycle of this or moving some things on or abandoning some of the ideas that just didn't work. So that's it. Great job hanging in there. And I just want to say congratulations. And I hope that you've come up with lots of different ideas. I know it might be a little bit of tiring, but hopefully it's also, I'm really exciting to think about what the possibilities are. So have at it and happy experimenting. Bye.